Welcome to Share, a podcast production of AMATUS Recovery Centers. I'm your host, Kabir Singh. At the top of each episode, we like to remind our listeners that addiction is treatable and recovery is possible. If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, call AMATUS today at 855-80-SOBER or visit us online at amatusrecoverycenters.com. We've been having a lot of fun producing Share here at AMATUS, but we know we're not the only ones with the podcast about addiction and recovery. We're planning to speak with hosts of many of these shows. Today we're lucky to have Theo Hill here, host of WYPR's One Day at a Time in recovery in Baltimore. Theo has been in recovery for 21 years. By day he drives tractor trailers, and by night he is a substance abuse counselor. He's been a counselor for 12 years. We're excited to hear Theo's story and get some insight into his own experience hosting a show about recovery. Theo, welcome to Share.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You know, as our listeners can likely tell from the intro, you have a life that's rich today. And while guys like me and you who've been in recovery for a while, I don't know if you know this about me, hopefully, here soon this year I'm going to have 10 years in long-term sustained recovery.
Congratulations.
And you've certainly doubled that. And while guys like me and you know that's fine, that's great, having sobriety, clean time, it's a just for today type of thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, take us back before all that. Take us back before you were a counselor, you're driving. I'm sure you weren't driving no tractor trailers.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me start with my father was in the military, and I've basically been all over the world. I've been blessed to be all over the world, and he was stationed in Germany, and he got 2 different tours in Germany. And my father was kind of like a historian, adventurous, and we did a lot of traveling as a family. Also, my father and my mother, they liked to party, and they would host these. His crew, they would play pinochle, and my mother and her crew, the wives of all the army people, she played Pekino. So you got card playing here, and then you got the bingo game Pekino over here. And by me being the middle child out of 5, our parents would always give us chores, though, no matter what. So naturally, it was my job to clean up after the parties on Friday and Saturday night. Yes. Right. So, and this is why I love to see kids, because they're so curious and they want to learn about everything.
Yes.
And this attracted me to the drinks being left on the table, right, was like my first temptation, when it came to a substance. And I had to see what was on the other side of the curtain. So I was like 10, and I got my first taste of alcohol, my first taste of a substance.
Right.
And what that did was it planted a seed in me that I'm going to get back to that. And we basically, I loved school. History was my favorite subject, and I loved to go outside and play and adventure like kids do. But my father, he was strict disciplinarian, and we had to do chores. And I had to do the same chores my sisters did. I got 3 sisters and 1 brother. And they basically had to wash the dishes, sweep the floor, and the house had to be clean. Dinner was on time every day. It was military,
right,
with military precision. And my father was a stickler on time, which I am this very day. I'm so much like him.
Not a bad thing.
Huh?
Not a bad thing.
Oh no, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
The time thing, being on time, is definitely paid off in civilian life.
Yeah. I think they say in the military, I've heard in the military, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so true. And people call you by your last name and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? Because I called my fiance by her last name. And she was like, where you get that from? Well, I got it from my father. But anyway, as far as substance is concerned, when we were over in Germany, I'm like 13. Our parents used to let, all the parents over in Germany, they would let their kids stay out all night and like in a bivouac, but they would stay in tents. So we would all say, Mom, can I go camp out tonight? Mom would give you permission. Yeah, you can go camp out. And this one particular evening, I smelled this funny smell. Now, in Germany, they didn't have marijuana,
Right.
but they had hash.
That's right.
And that's what I smelled. I smelled hash. And it was basically the same curiosity that I had with the drinks. I asked the guy, could I try some of that? And I tried smoking hash, and it really, I don't know if I got intoxicated, but what attracted me was the ritual of, guys sitting around smoking hash.
I think they also the method is that they mix it with tobacco, so the
Yes.
whole process of the roll. I remember that you're waking up my memory too.
Yes,
I remember that, yeah.
yes. So that was my introduction to, let's say, drugs.
Yeah.
And I'm like 13. I'm over in Germany, and that went on for 3 years, and then your duty tour is only 3 years. So when I came back, and it was 1969 when I came back, and the guys had just landed on the moon. There was all this racial unrest going on, but I wasn't part of that by being in Germany. I really didn't know what was going on. Now, growing up in the military, we had a diverse family, I grew up with all types of colors of peoples and stuff.
The military
like that.
community you were in.
Yes, the
yeah.
military community, exactly.
Gotcha.
So I really wasn't exposed to like the racial climate that was happening with the cities at that particular time. But eventually I would learn about that.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was my father got stationed at Fort Meade, Maryland.
Okay.
But before he could move into Fort Meade, though, he had to get civilian housing outside of the Army base, and he chose a place in Baltimore called Cherry Hill.
Uh-oh.
Yes, and what happened was there was some guys up at the shopping center, right? And they had these nice looking pants on, and and they was kind of like, slapping each other five, and I was like attracted to that. I said, what are those guys doing?
Big cars.
Yeah. I said, what are those guys doing? And they do the nod thing, this, that. And so eventually I got enough nerve up to ask what was going on. I had a buddy, and we kind of like knew that something was happening besides them just standing up there. And that's when I got introduced to a drug that I fell in love with, and I didn't know how devastating it would be. And that was heroin. And at that particular time, this is back in '69 now, they had something called buck pills, $1 pill.
The bucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a dollar pill,
Mm-hmm.
right? So me and my buddy, we were split in half, 50 cents a piece. And I'm young, and I'm not familiar with the IV drug use at the time. Right. So, but I knew that snorting was a method of ingesting this drug. And Man, you talking about a life changing instant. When I first snorted heroin and started feeling it, and it was like, oh my God, is there something really like this in life?
Yeah.
You know, and I was, it left an indelible impression on me. And it was a chase for the next 30 years. And
so at this point you're 13.
no, I was 13 when I smoked the hash.
Okay, so now
at this point I'm in high school.
You're in high school now. Okay.
So I'm like 17 when I first.
30 more years down the runway.
Yeah.
Okay.
It all seemed like one day.
Yeah.
You know, but it was 30 years of what our literature tells us, jails, institutions, and it was only through God's grace that I didn't die.
You and me both.
Right, and it was on, you know, and it was the jails became at the end of active addiction. The jails became a relief. Thank God I made it to jail, so I don't have to go back out there and feel that pain and that misery.
It's like the 3 hots and a cot. You get some weight back on.
Yes, just a relief that you don't have to go back out there and run.
Yep.
The getting into using and finding ways and means to get more have become my life. Now, in between that, my mother, who's no longer here, she always had my back. She was always my best friend. She wouldn't give me a place to stay when I was out there, but she would always feed me and try to give me a couple dollars here and there in my in-between. So it was finally my ex, who has been like a second mother to me, you know, an addict always seeks a easier, softer way. So you know what I'm saying? So I had to have a woman that, you know, I could get resources from, and she would help me. But anyway, this particular night, I'm 45 years old, and I'm laid up in the abandonment. They only call that in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I'm laid up on 22nd Street between Greenmount Avenue and Barclay. I'm up in this dirty apartment, and what happened was God lifted the veils off my eyes, right? I mean, this is after 30 years. For the first time, I could see how I was living.
Squalor.
Yes, I could see. And what happened was I had a spiritual awakening, and I had this overwhelming.
Did you ask for it? Were you there? Were you asking for it?
No, I didn't ask for this.
Okay.
This was like a spontaneous thing. I didn't know. I still had money in my pocket.
Wow.
And I was using, and it was that time.
It happened to me.
Wow.
Same thing happened to me. I still had money. I still had money to run.
Yes.
But I
had money. Yes.
The hair standing up.
There it is. Yes. So what happened was I humbled myself for the first time in my life, and then I asked for help. I made the most sincere prayer that I could make. I said, God, please help me. And in his infinite wisdom, right, he told me, look, all the answers to your dilemma are within you. So all that energy and manipulating, lying, conniving to get one more, I put that use for treatment.
So
go ahead.
Treatment's a part of your
treatment
story. Okay.
is what, you know, was part of God's answer.
Right.
You saying you asked me to help you, and I'm telling you that all the answers are within inside you, right? Then you need to get to a treatment facility like ASP, like right now.
Okay.
And there was one
ASP is
as soon as possible.
Okay. Oh yeah, I thought that was
because I might change my mind the next day.
Okay, you're right.
You know what I'm
That
saying?
window.
It was just a thought. You know what I mean?
Small.
You ask God to help you. So what? You ask God to help you many a times. But this particular time, I was sincere and I was humble. And I knew when God said all the answers are within you, I knew that I had to do some action. I had to back the action up, on my part. God said, I got you, but you have to put one foot forward in front of the other.
So I bet
you have to.
You're going to tell me how you ended up in treatment.
Well, it was that particular night, my ex, right? And I thank her to this very day.
The second mom.
Yeah, the second mom. Yeah, that's how I was living. She drove me from East Baltimore to West Baltimore on North Avenue. There was a place called I Can't, We Can. And they take you in on demand. Like you hit the on demand button and you get an instant channel. Yeah. They took me in right away.
That's how it should be.
And that's what I needed at that particular time. Now, I Can't, We Can is not for everybody, but it was just right for me because it was military based as far as how they run the program.
I think they used to call those therapeutic communities.
Yes, with the toothbrushes and stuff like that. So
it's tough.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's no joke, especially if you're coming like off the street. This is 30 years with no treatment. Don't even know what treatment is.
No structure in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
So they asked me a question, though, and I don't recommend this to anybody that's hearing my story. But nowadays it's different anyway with the fentanyl and stuff like that. You could go out. They said, do you want to go to a detox? Now, my body, said, yeah, man, get us to a detox. Because remember I said, an addict's always looking for an easier, softer way.
Right.
But the spiritual part of myself said, I think you need to feel the pain of. Now, I don't reckon this to anybody, but it was right for me. You need to feel the pain of withdrawal.
You just went through it.
And I went through it. Right
there.
Right there at their house, 2110 Allendale. And that was the house. See, it's structured where you got keys and house managers, assistant house managers, right? And I was a blackout.
Yeah.
And I went through it.
Real quick disclaimer for the listeners who are out there, because this can be dangerous, right? So the opiate addict, I know for a fact, you could feel like you're gonna die, right?
Yes.
But you're not. It's not good. So the people that are on the benzodiazepine, drink alcohol, they
can't. They gotta go through.
They may have a seizure or something else. So, I'm sure those professionals.
This was back in the day, where when I get locked up, I go to city jail. I feel the 3-4 day thing, right? So that's where I was at.
Right.
Nowadays, I wouldn't even consider it. But please get me to a detox.
Yeah.
Let me get medically through this process. And that's another thing in the recovery process too, right? Where I'm from the old school, right? Was total abstinence.
Yes.
And nowadays is harm reduction.
Harm reduction.
Yeah.
Multiple
medically,
yes. Medication tested. Yep.
So, at this particular time, though, I'm total abstinent, and I crawl. I go through withdrawal from heroin. They got some powerful drugs out here nowadays, but it's still, your body still goes through chemical changes, and then mental changes too, where I'm seeing spiders. My arm feels like it's crawling on me. My stomach is upset. It feels like I'm, I gotta go to the bathroom. Gotta throw up.
Yep.
All that.
We gotta remember that.
Yes. And a spiritual book says that weeping endureth for night, but joy cometh in the morning. And what happened was, That was Friday night when I went in there. Sunday morning, I had a mustard seed of feeling a little bit. I felt a little bit better. And that night, I went to my first NA meeting.
Did they brought it in, or you went?
No, the house, right? Blackout. I'm a blackout.
Right, you're on blackout.
But the keys, the guys with the key to the house, right? They took us to a meeting.
Gotcha.
And when I got to the meeting, I heard all these people laughing and stuff. And I'm saying, oh my God, this can't be, this is not true. Yeah. But here's what God did. He put a guy in there that I was using with, and he had been in NA for a minute. And his hands, they used to call him Big Hands Charles, right? Because his hands were real big from hitting, missing and stuff like that. And he was in there laughing and stuff. So now I got tangible evidence that the recovery process does work. And
happy, joyous, and free.
I seen him. He hugged me. He said, "Man, stick and stay." I won't forget that. And I've been in the recovery process ever since then. Now, what does a person after 30 years, what do we do? Well, I thought about that, and I said, since you've been in active addiction for 30 years, you could become a decent counselor. Not knowing what counseling consists of, though.
Right.
I'm just, taking it raw, like a putty, like we building something, right?
Right.
Taking it in the raw. But in the same time, in the process of my 30 years, I had went into the military. Actually, I went into the reserves. And what happened was, when I was in the reserves, I stayed in like 212 days. In order to get VA benefits, you need 180 days.
Okay.
This is God working again.
Right.
So I had over 180 days, so I was able to get VA benefits. So I've always loved trucks. And so back then, this is before you had to go to school and everything, you would just take your military license and just give it to the NBA, and they give you your CDLs.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I got my CDLs. I'm driving for the program.
So wait a second.
Go ahead.
Did you know how to drive a truck or not?
Yeah, I drove a truck in the military.
Okay, the same type of truck.
Yeah. And then, I had little jobs here and there.
Okay.
Nothing heavy, because I would always...
You're moving heavy equipment in the military.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would always get fired off each job for stealing.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't hold nothing in front of me, and I go in a spot, or we go to work somewhere. I already got it calculated where I'm gonna sell it, how much money we're gonna get, where I'm gonna cop what I'm gonna have for the next day.
Pre-internet.
All that. Yes. yes. So I'm driving the truck. So something said, nothing said. Something said, in order for you to become a counselor, you have to go to school.
Yeah.
And at this particular time is a HBCU called Sojourner Douglas. Let me roll back though a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now, what we didn't know, I was in treatment, but what y'all didn't know is I had accumulated all these charges in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Anne Arundel County, Howard County, and Baltimore City.
Okay.
So...
Nice little radius you got there.
Yes. All right. So, I had to go face the music. I had to face the judge. I had to face the records of my past. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they gave me 4 years. It was a violation of probation that finally gave. And they ran everything together. Bless again. I'm only doing 4 years, state of Maryland. In the meantime, my mother passes away because God knew that I wouldn't be able to handle that when I was out in the street. So I was behind bars. The guys on the tier kind of like patting me on my back, and I'm dealing with reality for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, okay, my mother passed. So when I come home, my mother had, she left us a few dollars, right? And when I come home, I got me a little piece of car, and that particular day, and then I went to a meeting. And I've been going to meetings ever since. I love the virtual meetings because you don't have to get up and get dressed and stuff like that. You can just hit it on your phone.
You gotta. It takes more effort on my behalf. I have to be really tuned in.
Push yourself.
Don't get distracted.
Right.
But I do agree with you. Instead of a 3-hour process, it's an hour.
But I really only make my home group.
Right.
Because this is, that's where I'm committed. Like a relationship, I'm committed. I'm committed to the home group, and our home group deals with steps and traditions every other week.
Okay.
So I'm in the constant learning mode.
Stay connected to the literature.
Yes, constant learning mode. So, fast forward a couple of years ago, because I love listening to the radio because I love learning. So I'm listening to Out of the Blocks, right? And they, the guys that, that I grew up with, and some guys that I didn't grow up with.
What's that, Out of the Blocks?
Out of the Blocks is the podcast. Well, actually, it's a series that's on every Thursday at 6:30 in the morning and 8:30 in the morning with Aaron Hinkin, the producer, and he talks to people who are on the block.
Okay.
So
he's out there.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So he's out there interviewing people on the blocks. I'm in the truck listening.
Okay.
It just inspired me to call him up. And his guy working again. I get right through to him. And I said, look, man, I think I can help with a contribution as far as the recovery piece is concerned. And but I don't know how to do a podcast. So actually I was calling him just to ask about equipment.
Yeah.
And I was asked, said, well, do I need a mic? Do I need this? Do I need that? And then he invited me into the studio. And I met.
That's how you got the idea. Well, that's what sparked the idea for WYPR.
Right. Gotcha.
So just a little quick refresher for the listener here.
Yes.
WYPR is Theo's podcast.
Right.
So that's how that was the driving
sort
of.
That was
the flame that ignited that.
That united that. Yeah. And what happened is that actually guys and girls, just tell their story like I'm telling mine, like I just told y'all. And what it does is it gives the listener a shot of hope. Hey, if this guy can overcome a serious 30-year addiction, then I got a chance.
I heard you talk about God a lot during this podcast. You brought up his name. What would you say to the listener right now who's like they don't buy the God stuff? Right?
That I understand. I understand why God kind of like runs you away, because it's hard to fathom if you are totally self-centered. I hate to step on some toes, but that's the core of our disease.
That's right.
Is our total. You listen to the word total, self-centeredness, right? They tend to run the word God away. That's why we use higher power. Right, to soften that blow. Because a lot of people just can't deal with the God thing. And it runs them away, just like when they first come to a meeting, they think everybody's clicked up and stuff. That kind of runs them away. But I understand, after being in recovery this long, that little distractions run you away.
Yes.
And there was a suggestion that if you put all the energy you can in your recovery, just like you did in active addiction, right, you got a fairly decent chance of making it. That's why the podcast is called One Day at a Time.
Right.
In recovery.
See,
come on, talk to me.
You're talking about programs. You're a counselor.
Yes.
Of course, AMATUS recovery centers, we have programs here. You talked about 12-step recovery.
Yes.
And there's no doubt.
I talked about medically assisted.
You talked about that.
Yes.
Well, why are these? So the 12-step recovery, that's clear, right? The listener can hear that. The listener's heard that from me plenty of times. Why are these types of programs important? The treatment programs.
To help build a foundation, right? You want to help you build your foundation. And these treatment facilities are grounded in the foundation, just enough for you to get started like a tree growing. But you got to have a foundation to plant that seed.
Yeah.
That's why they're important. That's why they're structured. That's why they have you doing the routine and stuff like that. There'll be plenty of time later on for you to go on your own, but they're built to help you build a foundation.
I agree. I believe a good program, just like the one you went to, the guys with the house keys,
yes.
The program I was at, they did take us to 12-step meetings, or H&I brought them.
Right.
One of the two.
One of the two.
Right. And any good program, along with whatever they're doing during the day, is hopefully going to be introducing you to 12-step recovery. For me, that was my aftercare. I mean, I know that's not what 12-step recovery is called, but I mean, in essence,
that was your aftercare. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I did. I went to those every day, and it's invaluable because it sure as heck don't cost as much money as real aftercare.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your podcast.
Okay, my podcast. When it comes to like information and knowledge, I'll break off from the stories like this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have relapsed during this pandemic.
Mental health is at up. Yeah.
Yes.
All the
yes.
time. Yeah.
So I kind of like want to give some encouragement, for the people who are struggling, because everybody's just not in recovery, and I understand that. But there's a lot of people who want recovery but just don't know how to go about getting it. That's another thing why these programs like this come into play. You give people an opportunity to get to somewhere from point A to point B. Right. A lot of times it's about, I want to come to treatment, but I just can't seem to make it. I can't get out of bed to do it.
Right.
Or I'm thinking this way one way tonight, right? And then the next morning it's back to what I have to do.
Yeah. Help us along with the stages of change. You're a counselor, you know about
yes,
stages of change. Yep.
Yes.
And so the pre-contemplation to the contemplation, right to action. All very important, and I agree. It's programs like this that help us. How does the listener find your podcast?
He would go to he would Google it.
Okay.
Our best friend.
Okay.
He would Google WYPR Theo Hill.
Theo Hill.
And then the podcast will come out.
Beautiful. Well, there you have it, folks. You're going to find Theo Hill. Google WYPRs, One Day at a Time, Recovery in Baltimore, and you'll be able to find him. Thank you, Theo, for coming.
Thank you for thank you for offering me. I appreciate it. I really do.
Of course. We hope to have you sometime soon. If you choose to have me on your end, I'd be much obliged.
That's what we do, bro.
Yeah, that's right. If you or a loved one needs help with addiction, call AMATUS today at 855-80-SOBER or visit us online at amatusrecoverycenters.com. You can find all episodes of Share at amatusrecoverycenters.com/share or download episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us for another episode. I'm Kabir Singh, and we'll see you next time.
Fantastic.